Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Danielle, on my channel, HopeArising, and we're back with Eddie Block. And last time where we left off, it was 2008, 2009, and you had been telling us about your drama-filled wedding.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, you were.
Always drama in my life. Yeah.
So, what happened after the wedding?
I got divorced.
How long were you married?
So we got married in 2008 or 2009 maybe, I forget which one. And then divorced in 2020. So yeah. So
Okay.
however long that is. Uh-oh.
We lost you.
I'm trying
There
to
we
find chat. There we go. Comments.
go. So you're married for about 11 years.
Yeah.
So what happened in between that time with you professionally?
Professionally, so I had just been forced retirement as a plumber when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just tried making money on the side, doing plumbing jobs. Just tried to start a plumbing company, but it didn't really last because my body didn't work. I couldn't do it anymore, and I couldn't get built up fast enough to be able to afford to hire employees. And so I was forced into retirement and disability and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was not fun at all. You know, you go from being a plumber in the San Francisco Union, and I was like the number one plumber, like pay scale wise, so
Mm-hmm.
it's hard going from making, over 100 and something thousand bucks a year to, you know, less than 20. So
Right.
that was huge difference. So I was still trying. I'd always had what my ex-wife called my schemes, um, like a lot of it was mostly plumbing. I would try selling stuff on eBay, whatever, buying storage units, whatever I could do to make the money. So
Mm-hmm.
I would do that. My wife, she went to school for women's studies and criminology. That's what it was, criminology. But she just liked working at homeless shelters, and so she basically made minimum wage, and she didn't help much when it came to the bills. So it was always put on me, because I'm the guy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of sucked because we found out her parents were having issues. So then we had to live with their parents to support them at the same time as supporting us. And I started going to I became an Elks member.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting really well known there. And one day this guy asked me if I wanted to buy a house, and I was like, dude, I got put on disability. I can't get a house. Nobody's going to give me a loan. And we're at the bar, and he's like, well, I didn't ask you if you could get a loan. I asked you want to buy my house. And I was like, I don't even have money for the down payment. And he's like, I didn't ask you that either. So he's all, do you want to buy my house? It's a fixer upper. It's a rental I've always had issues with. If you want it, it's yours. And so I went and talked to my wife, and I was like, he's probably just BSing because he was drunk. And we called him the next day, and we talked about it. And he's like, well, how much can you afford? And I just threw $1,000 out there a month, not even though I really couldn't afford that. You do that at first.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, all right, it's yours. And I was like, what? And I was like, well, probably I can't really do like 1,000. So we figured out it was $762 a month for 8 years was how long it would take to pay off.
Oh,
And I
wow.
actually, working my butt off, I paid it off in 5. So,
Wow.
doing side job, all my little schemes is my wife called it. Um, so that was pretty cool, but we couldn't move into our house because we had to take care of her parents. So
Mm-hmm.
we rented it out. And
Okay.
then due to some issues on her parents' side, they still lost the house. And so it was lucky. It was right on the time when our tenants were done, or at least our lease was up. So we had to kick our tenants out, and then we moved into that house. All 6 dogs, chinchilla, cat, and me and my wife.
Wow.
And eventually a pig. So
Right.
so yeah. Then, after I got this letter in the mail one day, and it's called, Social Security ticket to work, and you could, they said, come in and we'll help you find a job, so you're not at home on, disability. So I went there, and I'm like, right away, I'm there, and they're like, well, Mr. Block, because you make so much on your disability, we can't find you a job that'll pay what you make. And so I was like mad about it. I was like, but I want to work, Then she's like, well, there's nothing we can do. So me being me, I called her boss and complained. So then I talked to him, and he's like, look, there's nothing we can do, and we're not going to help you. And so I called his boss and complained on him. And finally they said, well, if you, how about this? We'll send you to college. And I was like, heck yeah. So they sent me to college. But it was a condition. I had to do something in the construction field. So they chose civil engineering for me. They're like, oh, you're really good at math. And so I was good at math until I hit, what is it, trigonometry or whatever. All of a sudden, get the like the sine, cosine, and all that stuff. So I was like, excuse me. When I got to one of the math classes, and the teacher told us all, he's like 5% of you guys are gonna pass. Just letting you know. And I was like, yeah, I'm good at math, no problem. And then I passed, but barely. So I decided to take a film class, for fun, because me and my buddy liked filming stuff. And I had the best grade in that class, and the professor's like, dude, you need to switch over. You're gonna be great at this. And I was like, well, I really do like it, but they're paying for all my books. And he's like, well, but is that all they pay for is your books? And I'm like, yeah, because I get the Cal grant, so college is free because, my disability and stuff. And he said, well, we don't have books. We're film, we're media. Everything's all on the internet. So you don't have to worry about that. So I went to the Department of Rehab, which is who was sending me to college, and they were paying for my books and like gave me a computer. And I told them, and so I just quit Department of Rehabs and switched over to film, because I thought, I'm not good enough at math. Am I really going to want to build a bridge and use my numbers, and then somebody dies on my bridge? I wasn't going to do that. The lampshade is messed. I can't see anything because of it. But yeah, so I started going to college, and I was doing film stuff. And so it's a media communications and journalism class. It's not a film school, but it teaches you how to make films and edit films. And I started doing that. And I had a buddy that was doing political stuff in the news. And so I was like, hey, here's my in. And I started helping him out. And in college, I ended up, I was the director of the live news for our Fresno, campus news. And I would direct for like the local PBS. Every time the little city college had a basketball game, they invited me to direct it because I was so good at directing it.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing like a real good feat. I was getting really high up in there and stuff. But because I went the political route, I didn't go with one that was very friendly to people here in California and college students.
Right.
It was opposite of what most colleges go for. So I became blacklisted really quick. Really quick. So I just kind of went along with that and started doing new stuff with my buddy. And it was interesting. We started traveling the country, wherever we went, people were like, hey, it's Ben and Eddie, and wanting to hug us and shake our hands. And it was really cool. But it caused a big rift. I already had troubles in my marriage, and it just got worse because I was never political until I got to college. I was in poli-sci class, and I asked my professor, I'm like, how do you know if you're a Democrat or a conservative? And he's like, you'll know. And so I started getting through the class, And next thing you know, I was like, you're right, I do know. And
Right.
I started doing my thing, so I started, like I said, we were traveling the country, going all over the place. And I started making documentaries for my buddy Ben. And we're getting like, hundreds of thousands of views on our videos. Sometimes like one or two had 1 million views. um, National radio host even mentioned us, hey, you got to check out this documentary. And me and Ben were like, like, I don't know if you want me to say who it was and stuff. Um,
Yeah, go ahead and say, yeah,
so
where you were working if you want to.
Rush Limbaugh one day said, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I was just watching this documentary called America at War by Ben Bergquam. And we both just freaked out, like, oh my gosh, and then Alex Jones said the same thing. So it was really cool that we were getting out there.
Right.
And
So you got into film, and when did you graduate?
I graduated 2019,
Okay.
December of 2019. And because of that, I didn't get to walk because COVID had just started.
Right.
So because you don't graduate at the half semester, they made you wait until the full end of the year before you can do
Right.
your stuff. So I graduated in 2019, and um, like some of the kids, like everybody wanted to be my in my when I was doing film stuff, everybody wanted to be my partner because I always got the best grade in class, and I did all the work. So of course they wanted to be my partner.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this one kid I worked with a lot. He was really cool, and I taught him how to edit. Showed him shortcuts. And just how I go about, where the first thing I do is I find the song, and then then I know the speed of the video, how it's going to go and stuff. And
Right.
well, he called me one day, and he was editing John Wick 4.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, lowest of the low of the low, and I was like, me and him used to watch those videos, every at lunch when we were at college, in between classes, we'd all sit there and watch John Wick or different kinds of shows. And so I was like, wow, that's cool. And he's like, Eddie, I got to tell you something. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, well, I started telling him about you and how you're the one that taught me how to edit. And, maybe they should look into you. And he was told immediately, don't ever mention that name around here again. And if you do, you will be very surprised if you still have a job. Just because of how well I was known in the political world.
Oh, wow.
So I thought that was awful, and I realized then that I'll never be able to work as in Hollywood as a film director like I wanted to, or make a movie.
Right.
And
So that's what made you pivot to what
I was
you've been
already
doing?
pivoting, but it
Okay.
made it where I can never go back. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. So I was never able to go back. And when he told me that, it was actually after the story I think you're about to ask me about. So
Well, what? So you became political.
yes.
Did you run for office?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So because Ben and I became so well known for our conservative videos and stuff like that, the Republican Party of Madera came to me and asked me to run for county supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's you don't start way up here. I didn't want to do that. And there was a guy who was in my district. He was on the city council and a Republican. And I was like, hey, Derek, why don't you move up and then I can run for city council? But he didn't feel like he was ready yet. So they had me run for county supervisor. And they made it seem like I was going to get all this help, and I actually didn't. I got very little help. It cost just to sign up. It was like $1,800 just to get your name
Wow.
ballot. And my stepdad actually, because I was in college, my stepdad loaned me that money to do it. And then the Republican Party of Madera, they bought me my signs. They bought like $1,000 worth of signs, but that's
Mm-hmm.
all the help I got. So I bought like these little I went for imprint. Yes, I'm for imprint certain. I got these. They had these calendars, right? They're magnetic calendars with my
Mm-hmm.
face on there. Because we gave those when we were plumbers. Our customers loved those things. That was the
Mm-hmm.
best advertising you could do. And so I took that all the way around, and that's what I use in my promotional stuff. But unfortunately, I had a lot of drama in my life, and like with nobody helping me, it was just constant working, like 20 hours a day, and you just get so tired and stuff. And but I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't sleep because of my disability. And one day, my wife was like, "Well, you know what to do? Go have a drink. That helps you sleep." But I didn't want to drink at home because I was always told if you drink at home, you're an alcoholic. So I went to a bar, and I fell asleep on the way home and crashed my truck. And that pretty much ruined everything for me when that happened.
Right.
And I mean, I got it. I was over the limit. I was point 0.01. Oh wait,
Mm-hmm.
point. Well, yeah, I was just barely over the limit. But what happened is I fell asleep. So it doesn't matter. I was over the limit, so I got a DUI, and I shouldn't
Right.
have been driving. I mean, it was stupid for me to do that in the first place. But I was in an all Democratic area, but I still got 30% of the vote out of 3 people.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was still pretty good.
That is still pretty good.
Yeah. So that was my political career, and
Okay.
yeah.
So let's go back to the what you've gotten into. You were a Proud Boy.
Yes. Yeah, I was. I was.
How did you get into that?
Well, so Ben and I, we're doing all these political videos, and wherever we would go, it was always dangerous. Like there's a video out there of Ben where he's at Berkeley and just getting beaten with a cane and blood everywhere just because he was wearing a Trump hat.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we always would get people. These guys would always come up and say, "Hey, we'll do your security for free." Wherever we went, they were always our security. Um, and I was like, these guys are pretty cool. And we were then working for this group. It's called Real America's Voice News. Well, back then it was America's Voice News, and now it's Real America's Voice News. And one of our documentaries, we entered into the film contest at my college because they had me run the film contest. Because I was at school one day and we had this big huge event, and they told us we all had to show up. They're going to show our videos, and it ended up just being the broadcast people. They only cared about the news people, and none of our videos got shown. And this one girl was crying, and I turned around, and her dad was just yelling at her, like, "You made me take this day off from work, all this stuff, and they didn't show your video." So I complained. I was like, this girl was crying. My wife took off of
Mm-hmm.
work too. I wanted to see my video up there. So they said, "Well, good. We're going to do a film festival for film students only, and you're in charge." So we had a team, and nobody was entering their videos. And I said, "Well, I got a lot of videos. I'll enter them." And so I started putting them in, and all of a sudden, the other students who were not like-minded as I was said, "You can't have your videos in here. They're against the rules." And I said, "We have no rules." And they said, "Yeah, well, you called them illegal aliens, and that's racist. So we don't want your videos in." And so I was really mad about that, and I went to the president of the university, which
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had a special seat in his office because I went in there so much. But so he's like, "No, that's wrong." So he told them they had to allow my videos in there, and it ended up that Ben and I won best documentary
Oh, wow.
from all these liberal professors who hated me, but because our video was so good, they couldn't not give us first place. But when we were there, I showed up and there's like 10 Proud Boys standing there just ready in case somebody messed with us. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, these guys are kind of cool. And I started talking to them and they're real friendly, and a couple weeks after that, there were some more events where they stuck up for us. And I told Ben, I was like, one of us should join. These are cool guys. But the national news organization we worked for, we were worried that it might be a conflict with them.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'll join. And it was just like the first time I went in, the first meeting, they all knew me already, but it was just such a great friendship. These are
Right.
guys. The minute you walk in the door, everybody gives you a hug, and we're guys, like, I mean, big, huge guys, and they come up and give you a hug, and I was like, wow, this is kind of different. And then as we were walking out the door, they're like, "Hey, man, I love you. Have a good day." And it was just so weird having that kind of, relationship with other guys because
Right.
like I said, we're tough guys. You don't say I love you, but
Right.
that's how they were, and it just they were so nice. So I joined and I kept joining, and they already knew that I made videos, so they made me like I kept getting higher and higher, not level wise, but just known wise. Like more and more
Mm-hmm.
people know me as the guy with the camera, and so I started hanging out with like the top level guys. Like they're calling me up and hey Eddie, let's go hang out. Or so next thing you know, they're inviting me to all these events to film so I can document what's really going on. Because in the news, everybody's saying the Proud Boys, oh, they're these racist white supremacists. And the funny part is, all of the guys in my chapter in Fresno, we had 15, 12 were Mexican. One was a black guy who immigrated here from Tunisia, and then there's us two white guys.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, we're really freaking racist and homophobic stuff. And so that's how I became a Proud Boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to know the people, and eventually you ended up at January 6th.
Yeah, that was my second time going to DC. Yeah.
Right. The first time was in late December with
December 12th.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
With everything that happened there.
Yeah. Yeah. I we started, President Trump at the time says everybody needs to show up and just show their support, you know. And so the Proud Boys were like, we should go, but we're not going to go as Proud Boys. If you want to go, you go as your own individual.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go, we have to protect because that was our job, When we would go to events, people think we go there to fight, and that's not what happened. We would go we'd go to this rally in Beverly Hills, and when people would go to leave, we'd have groups of 2 people that would walk people to their cars.
Mm-hmm.
Not because we were fighting, but because other people would attack these people because they had a Trump sticker on their car, or they had a Trump shirt or a flag.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Proud Boys did. They're there to protect them. So we said, we're going to go to DC in case somebody tries, is trying to hurt anybody else. And that's what we did. We went to DC just to stand there and make sure nobody got hurt.
Right. So that day has become
Mm-hmm.
infamous now. And you were filming all of it.
Not all of it, but a lot of it, yeah.
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 How did you end up on the Capitol?
Well, I started in the morning. I was trying to get in the Trump rally because I'd been at Trump rallies before, like my radio station, and Ben got me a White House press pass.
Mm-hmm.
So, because in order to go to Trump rallies as a press, they have to enter. You have to go through the White House press pool because that's how Secret Service works and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that press pass, and I had my radio station press pass. So I wanted to go to the Trump rally, and I get down there and I go to get in, but then they were like, no, you don't have the new press for today. You got to get another one. And so I just said, well, I'll just go film the crowd. And I came back out, and that's when I got to meet Alex Jones. I was like, oh, it's Alex Jones, and I saw him, and I was like, hey, dude, can I take a picture? And he's like, well, I'm really busy, bro. I'm like, I'm Eddie. You showed my films, and he's like, and then he looked and he realized who I was, and he's like, yeah, come on. So we took a picture, and but then some other guys were like, oh yeah, we're meeting up over here. So I went to where everybody's meeting up, and we're just all standing around, and they just a lot of the guys were like, hey, let's just show how nice we are. Let's walk around. Let's show everybody we're here to protect them. Kiss babies. They said,
Mm-hmm.
shake hands, stuff like that. And I said, you guys want me to film this today? And they were like, yeah, please film everything. So we started marching, and we started at the Washington Monument and just marched towards the Capitol. And on the way, I had a rental scooter, and they were going over the grass, and the scooter was overheating. And I remember my buddy Rufio, who was in front of everybody. He's like, man, we got to stop for Eddie again, And so they kept stopping for me. And the next thing you know, we keep marching. It was probably like an hour at least, maybe 2, I don't know. And we took a little break. And as soon as we got towards the Capitol, it was weird. Everybody just started running. Like people from behind us started running. And it was like a mob. You see somebody running, you're going to start running too.
Mm-hmm.
And they just started running. running up there. And so I was trying to keep up, but there was thousands. I mean, just so many
Right.
people running by me. And I went to the handicap area, and that was just full of people trying to get up. And so I had a security detail, and they're like, "Come on, let's go this way." And so we walked around, and we see everybody like in this one area, but there was a wall between us. So my buddy just kind of lifted me over the wall, and we went up to this area, and there was stairs. So I was like, I'll just stay down here and film. And I filmed from down there. And after a while, some people were like, "Hey, you want to get up there and film?" And I'm a journalist, so of course I want to get up as high as I can. So these people carried me up a little bit higher. They helped me walk up while they carried up my scooter. And I filmed there for like an hour. And then some people were like, "Hey, you want to get up there?" And I was like, "Sure," because I'm a journalist once again. and so I get up there, and that was like my final spot. That was as high as I got. And I sat there for probably 3 or 4 hours, just filming everything. Like the tear gas was coming at us. I remember they were throwing these little balls, and they bounced, and then they exploded, and all these little rubber things would just hit everybody.
Oh, wow.
I was maced, I was tear gassed, and we had all these people just coming up and just, either putting milk of magnesia or something in your eyes to stop the watering.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the craziest thing happened. Some guy started praying, and everybody got quiet, and we all just started singing the national anthem. Nobody was fighting, it was just national anthem, just singing it nonstop. And slowly but surely, the police kept coming out and shooting people with rubber bullets or mace or whatever they could do to get them down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up there on my mobility scooter, and I was like, well, I'm going to stay up here and catch what I can. And I didn't catch much because I started filming at 6:00 in the morning. So my batteries were dead on everything. And there's no service because when you have that big of a crowd,
right.
the systems are so full. So I couldn't even film or live stream. And I just sat there and just watched everything that was going on, and watched people get maced and attacked. And it started getting dark, and people started going home. And all of a sudden, I see a whole bunch of mace. Like, I got tear gas really bad, and so I covered up. Luckily, I had a mask because of COVID, so I put up. That's the only time I was happy for that darn mask. So I'm covering myself up for this tear gas, and then I take it off, and my eyes start burning. But I see just cops just swarming out, and then I cover myself up again. And when I was finally able to see again, I just see a line of police just pushing everybody down, and I'm like, because I was backed up against the wall, and I'm like, how am I still up here, And all of a sudden, one of the cops turns around, and he's like, "How the F did you get up here?" And he walks over, and I think it was a National Guard walked up with him, and they're like, "Do you have any weapons?" I was like, "Just my cameras." And so they patted me down, and they said, "Are you going to be all right if we leave you here?" And I'm like, "Sure," because they saw I had my wife's press pass, right there. And so we went on for like another 10 minutes, and I look at my phone because I was trying to text somebody. I'm like, "Hey, I might be in trouble here or something." And I see I got service. So me being the journalist that I am, I said, "You know what? Better go live." So I started live streaming from on top of the Capitol, and all you see are the police just pushing people out. And I was there all by myself. So I was officially the last citizen on top of the Capitol that day.
What was the most memorable thing about that whole experience?
Probably everybody up there just singing the national anthem.
Okay.
And waving their flags, There was this one, I saw one guy, he comes running down the steps, and he can't see, he's covering his eyes, and they're pouring milk of magnesia on him, and he's just cussing back like, "F you MFers," and just going off. And he starts to see a little bit better, and he's like, "You bunch of," he some derogatory names to everybody standing around. He's like, "Let's get the F back up there." And he turns around and just goes right back in there.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, wow, that dude's freaking brave, like that was probably one of the most memorable things,
Okay. So
yeah.
after that, what happened to you? You go home, and what happened?
So I get home, and on the plane, I'm getting phone calls from all these news outlets, wanting to hear my story and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so I called my president, and he's like, "No story, don't do anything. Talk to Enrique." And Enrique was the chairman. So I text him. I'm like, "Hey, Enrique, what do you want me to do? All these people are calling me." And he's like, "Eddie, no, just don't do any interviews right now. Let's see what happens." And Channel 6 ABC 7 from San Francisco is calling me, this real well-known guy. And he's like, "Hey, I want to do an interview." I'm like, "No interview." And he kept texting me after that, "Come on, interview." And I was like, "Dude, no interviews." And he's like, "Can I use your footage?" And I'm like, "What if I say no? Are you still going to use it?" And he's like, "Yeah, because it's freedom of, whatever." So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Whatever." So they used my news, my stories, my videos. And when I was at the airport, I have a bad memory, so I wanted to remember what really happened that day. So I just talked in the airport about what I saw,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't get to video any of that stuff. So what this news place did, ABC 7 in San Francisco, Dan Noyes, you can go, um, he would ask a question that I talked about while I was in the airport, not being interviewed by him. So he made it look like he actually interviewed me.
Oh my gosh.
And that put a big target on my head. After that, I started getting death threats. Um, it was just, crazy. Um,
Right.
people driving by my house, throwing stuff at my house. Uh, just you name it was there. I mean, I have them on I keep one on my phone. It's the tamest one of the tame that I have on my phone. But that's the only person that left a voicemail. So,
Right.
and then after that, I was sleeping one morning, and I think you and everybody else started calling me. And you guys were like, "Eddie, you're live right now." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm not. I'm in bed. I'm not live." They're like, "Your computer's on and showing something." So I went in my back room, my studio room, and I shut everything down. And I was working on my eBay that day, and getting ready to do my nightly show. And there's just this pounding on my door, and it's about 20 or so FBI agents, with the Fresno sheriff, Madera police, with a search warrant for my house. And so they drugged me out of my house. Well, not drugged me. They took me out of my house, I should say, and started asking me questions and stuff, and like, "Are your dogs gonna bite me?" And I was like, "No." And uh, so they're showing me pictures of people, and like, "Who is this?" And like, it was Enrique Tario, right? And he's like the most famous person, so everybody knew him. And
Mm-hmm.
the picture of me and him. So I was like, if I say I don't know him, there's a picture of me and him and multiple pictures of us all over the country. So it's not like I can't say no.
Right.
So I was like, "Yeah, that's who that is, and this is who that is." And then they started showing me other pictures, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, do I have to answer these questions?" And they're like, "No, we're not here for you. We have a warrant for your property." And I said, "Good, I'm not talking anymore." And so I just stopped talking right then and there. So they raided my house for about 5 hours, and just went through everything. And they took my cell phones, all of them. Like, I had one for streaming and one personal cell phone. They took
Mm-hmm.
my iPad, every electronic device I had. They took my cable box. They took my Xbox 360s because they didn't want me to play video games, I guess. And then I told them, I was like, "Dude, can't you just copy my phone right here? I mean, when you go to the store, they copy it in like half an hour. I need my phone." And they're like, "No, you can't have it anymore. It's evidence." I said, "I'm handicapped. I live alone. I'm going through a divorce. What happens if I fall and hurt myself? How am I going to call for help?" And the FBI basically said, "It's not our problem." So they took off with everything.
Right.
One cop tried to be nice, or FBI agent, and he brought me like a prepaid phone. And at first I'm like, "Man, I don't want to use it because it's the FBI. What if there's something bugged on here?" But I tried making a phone call and it didn't work. So I went to Verizon real quick, and freaking, I barely had enough money to pay off my old phone so I could get a new one. And so I go live right away, and I'm like, man, and this effing FBI, he tried to give me a phone, but the effing thing didn't work. And so I get a call from him the next day, and he's like, hey, I'm sorry that phone didn't work. I really meant to get you a working phone. I was like, I knew it. You guys are watching my show, aren't you? So yeah, like Ross says, by the way, hi FBI. So they took everything, and like the worst, I mean, that's how I was trying to make money. I was trying to get off of being disabled, and I just graduated, and for a present, I bought myself a brand new iMac, fully loaded. Like
Mm-hmm.
I spent about $10,000 on just this computer alone, and it's still at the FBI. I had it maybe a couple weeks,
Oh, wow.
and the FBI has it. So it really sucked. Luckily, somebody from Texas sent me an email, and they're like, "Hey, idiot, I want to see you stream again. So here's $1,000 so you can go get a new laptop."
Right.
So that's how I got my MacBook, because of
Oh,
him
wow.
and a couple other people. So it was really nice having people like that, that came out and
Right.
helped a lot. So that's awesome. And so yeah, that was what happened there.
So moving ahead, obviously you were there at the Capitol. You had filmed everything. You were, to put it nicely, invited to go to the Proud Boys trial.
Yes. So some of my closest friends and a couple guys I didn't really know, they put them all together on trial, and they subpoenaed me to be a witness for the prosecution for a second, but then they realized I wasn't on their side, and they couldn't they couldn't provoke me to, because they had nothing on me, because I didn't do anything wrong. Um, I was just, I was a journalist, there. I had
Mm-hmm.
my 2 press passes, and I didn't go inside the Capitol. I was just at the top. I didn't break anything. I didn't tear anything down. I didn't even go past any borders. Um, the fence I went over was just like a wall. So it wasn't even like it was there to keep people away. It was like a little 3-foot wall. And the last time I was there, you could go right up there. So I didn't know that it wasn't. It was, you couldn't go in that area. And so they had nothing to get me for, because I didn't break any laws.
Mm-hmm.
But so they couldn't pressure me to talk what they talk about or talk in their favor. And next thing you know, all the defense attorneys were calling me, and they're like, we would need you as a witness. So the defense side then subpoenaed me to become a witness. And I ended up going to Washington, D.C. for a third time to testify in the Proud Boys trial. And that was very interesting, scarier than could be, you know. Um, I mean, I'm such a hated guy in the news. Like, they made a big deal. Donnie's my service dog, and he
Mm-hmm.
had to go with me. And they were so upset that I couldn't go without my service dog. It's like, I'm handicapped, you jerk offs, you know. They actually the judge had to rule on whether I could bring my service dog or not to court.
Oh, wow.
And it's ADA law. They can't say no. So I don't even know why it was just them making a show about me, trying to make me look bad.
Right.
And I don't fly good because of my disability. I can get on the plane and stuff, but I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stomach issues. And so I refuse to fly now, because there's been times, like on coming home from January 6th, I got really sick, but I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get up and get to the bathroom because of my disability. And it got very smelly, and everybody's talking shit to me. And, so why should I put myself through that to fly?
Right.
So they said, well, we don't know if we'll pay you back we'll fly you, but we're not going to pay for your driving. And I got a public defender, because even though you're just a witness, you can still get a public defender as long as it's one of these cases. And he was like, forget that, you have to pay him, and because he's disabled, you have to accommodate him. So luckily, Donnie and I drove all the way to Washington, D.C. And my good buddy Taiho, I said, hey, can you come with me in case, be my attendant,
Mm-hmm.
help me walk Donnie. And if I'm in court, maybe take him out to the bathroom and stuff like that. So Donnie, Taiho, and I got to go there. And I see Gracia say his full name. My dog's name is Donald J. Trump. But I live in California, so I have to call him Donnie. Otherwise, people hate on him.
And there was something that happened during the trial that was pretty interesting with your dog.
Which one? A couple of things happened.
I'm thinking of a certain photo.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So when they first walked in, like the prosecutors actually walked up to me, and they were like, there was one, she was a lady, and she comes up to me and she's like, Eddie, can I pet your dog? And I'm like, huh? She's like, can I pet Donald J. Trump? And I'm like, well, since you said his full name, yes, you can. So she petted him. And because the prosecution didn't want the jury to think nice of me because I was in a wheelchair, think, oh, poor wheelchair guy. They actually made it to where they put me on the stand before the jury came out because they didn't want the jury seeing me in a wheelchair or on my scooter. Mm-hmm. And I think that may have backfired a little bit because the jury where they walked out was right next to the stand, but Donnie couldn't fit on the stand with me. Mm-hmm. So he lay next to it, and the jurors had to walk by him, and every single juror would pet Donnie. And so you're not, I found out actually by mistake that you're not allowed to video or take pictures anywhere in the courthouse. Mm-hmm. Which I did when I was in a witness room. And I thought,
right.
hey, I'm just in this little room. It's just a white wall behind me. So I thought I could, but I got in trouble for that. And so did my attorney. Well, he wasn't my attorney for this case, but he was my attorney on another case, Norm Pattis. He'd gotten in trouble for taking a picture in the courtroom. So after I testified for 2 days straight, and after the testimony, the prosecution team stood up and they're like, Judge, you said it would be okay if we took pictures with Donald J. Trump, the service dog, on the stand. And the judge said, Mr. Block, is that okay with you? And I was like, sure. So next thing you know, the prosecution team is taking pictures with Donnie on the stand. And then my attorney and another thing, Norm Pattis, he took a picture of Donnie and posted it on Twitter. It was Twitter at the time. And that has, I think, about 400,000 views or something like that. So that was pretty cool. I got to tell you the story, though, the Digawort story. We have a good friend, Hope and I, named Digawort. And I have the slogan. It said, because I say, hey, I'm kind of a big deal. And during the trial, they had this couple of people, you couldn't film it, but they would go in there and they could tweet every word that was being said. And Digga was like, Eddie, no matter what, everything you say has to go to Congress because it's the Supreme Court or whatever court it was. And I was like, yeah. It's like, you need to say your slogan. I need you to say your slogan. So twice I made it where I said my slogan. Hey, well, of course people want to take my picture. I'm kind of a big deal. So that was kind of funny.
So now it's in court history as well.
Yeah. So after the trial, because I got to say this because I got to give credit where credit's due. Joe Biggs, who's one of the guys that I was going there to protect, or at least tell the truth for, I should say, not protect. They asked her, like, well, what is this guy doing with Joe? Why is he talking? I said, they're probably taking a picture. And they said, well, why would anybody want to take a picture with Joe Biggs? And I said, why wouldn't somebody? He's got 2 Purple Hearts. So Joe Biggs, this guy, has 2 Purple Hearts. So he didn't just go get hurt one time in the military in battle. He went back a second time for more and got hurt again. And they were calling him a terrorist. They've been taking his money away. They said he's no longer able to receive benefits to pay for his daughter because he's now a terrorist. And he hadn't even been convicted yet. And so I'm like, well, he's kind of like me. He's a big deal. So that's how we got it in. But I was trying to give Joe a lot of credit for, because I love our veterans, and
right.
Who would, freaking 2 Purple Hearts. I mean, I want to shake a hand of a guy who's got 1 Purple Heart, let alone 2,
Right.
And so yeah, that's where that came from.
So what happened after the trial? What have you been doing since then?
I've been trying to I did my show for a while, and I've been trying to get the money back, that all the money that I lost. I've been sued, not me sued personally, but every lawsuit that comes around, I get called as like the number one witness. So many people want me to be their top witness. And you can't just do that without having an attorney for yourself. And there has been a lot of not criminal cases, but civil cases. And so I probably spent about $20,000 alone just in attorney fees in 1 year. And being on disability, that's not easy at all. That's really rough. And so I've been trying to make money. I'm doing a news show, and after a while, I just got so depressed about it. That I
Right.
it was just too depressing. The news was always so sad, so I stopped doing it for a while. But then I realized that actually doing my show made me feel better than not doing my show, because I had all my friends there, everybody there that goes and watches me. Nobody donates money, but what they make me feel better, because they make me feel better. It's I do it for them, and I feel like I'm because what I do is I research the news, and I show you exactly what the real stuff is, and then I let you decide. And of course, I give my opinion to it, but I like doing that because I want people to make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way news should work. You should just give them both sides of the story and let them figure out what's really going on.
Right.
And so I started doing it again finally, and so that's what I do now. And I help take care of my stepdad, who's 89 years old.
So what does the future look like for you, Eddie?
I don't know. I don't know. It depends on what day you catch me on. Because there's days where everything's good and I'm happy, and then
Uh-huh.
there's other days to where all these little tiny things, like I'm in pain for my disability, or me and my girlfriend got in a fight, or somebody's sometimes Antifa or people on the left always come to my show, and they come in just to talk junk about me, and I know that they're just doing it to get in my fingers, or that's how I read in my head, but it gets to you sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll have just these insane blowouts where I am stupid enough to have a couple drinks and go live. And I saw this meme on Facebook the other day, and it says, after that third shot of whiskey, the whiskey bottle told me, now is the time to tell everybody what you really think about them. And yeah, that's me quite often lately. It's happened a lot. So some days I have a hopeful future, and other days I hope there's no future, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if for the good part of the future, I hope that I'm working on some documentaries, some to help people out that I'm not doing it for money, and other
Mm-hmm.
ones doing for money. Like I'm working, like Gra really got me on the remdesivir stuff, and we can't talk about that here.
Right.
But I started researching remdesivir, and I interviewed you. I interviewed a ton of people, and just their stories were so heartbreaking. So I'm working on getting those put up on places like Rumble and Locals, so where you can put those stories up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was featured in an HBO special a couple years ago called 4 Hours at the Capitol. And I called them up a couple months ago, and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a documentary about myself. Why, like what we're doing right here, almost exactly what we're doing right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them, would you guys be interested? And not HBO, but the company who produces for HBO, they said, we're not sure, but when you make it, give us the first chance to buy it. So I really want to get working on that, because then yeah, January 6th sucked, and all my friends are in jail right now, no matter what I've done to try and make things better for them. And, but at least if I can do that, of course I'll help myself out, but then also I help veterans out all the time. And, I help like when, Joe Biggs, when I found out what's going on with his daughter, I was sending him $500 every couple of months, to help support his daughter, and,
Mm-hmm.
send Enrique. So that's what I want to do. I want to I want to have a nicer life for sure, 100%. But also, I'm going to take whatever other money I can make and help everybody else out. You know, like Donnie and I in Tahoe just delivered a service dog to a veteran in need in Indiana, and that broke the bank. Like I didn't have the money for it, I really didn't. But every day, not every day, but at least twice a week, I get a text from him, just telling me, hey, "You saved my life." So that's like a goal. I want to be able to help more veterans and more just January 6th people. Um, I have something coming up. I have a friend who is very, very well known, a journalist reporter, and she wants to do a show every night with me, which I normally do, but instead we're going to focus more on getting out the January 6th stories.
Okay, that's exciting.
So she's not very good on camera, and she needs a co-host, so she asked me to be her co-host. So we are going to do everything we can to get all these January 6th stories out. And because she's a great writer, she writes amazing stories. And so we're going to take her written word and put it onto film for those people that would rather watch that story than read the story.
So will that be on your YouTube channel? Where would we be able to find it?
That's going to be on the Blockhouse Party for right now and Eddie Block Films.
Okay.
But she wants to start her own, or excuse me, our own news network.
Okay, and what will that be called?
I can't tell you yet.
Okay, well then.
Yeah.
We'll have to follow your pages so that we can keep up with that.
Yeah. So that's the hope. That's the hope. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's our goal.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's exciting, Eddie.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, do you have anything else that you would want to add?
Man. Well, the election's coming up, and I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I will tell you to do your own research. An informed voter is the best voter. I don't care how you vote. If you vote against me, but you think it's because you're supposed to vote what's best for you and in your eyes. So do that. Just be informed. I hate people like I'm on Facebook still. And you'll see stuff like Sylvester Stallone turns down $1 billion because he won't work with Robert De Niro. And people will just share it. But if you actually click on the link, it'll say satire in big words at the very top.
Right.
Which means it's like a joke, like a parody. But people will share it because they hope that's true, but they don't read it. And that's like my biggest pet peeve now. I just hate when people do that because that's how people are misinformed.
Right.
And it kind of stems back from people like calling me a racist because I was there January 6th and I'm a Proud Boy, so I'm a freaking racist. The news actually asked my ex-wife, what's it like being married to a racist? And my Mexican wife said, I'm Mexican, right? And just started laughing. It's like there's not a racist bone in his body. And so, yeah, it's just really bad. And that's why I hate when people do that. Because of the fact that I've finally seen what it's like for people who just share stuff and don't read. And that's what I do on my news. Like something may come out and it may be big news and it might be true. But if I haven't proven it to be true yet, I don't share it because I don't want to be known as that person that's spreading that's not. Whether it's either side, I don't protect either side at all.
Well, I will say one of the best resources to look up your own information on your local, state, and national candidates would be Ballotpedia, where you can put in your address and you can see exactly what the text of the bills or whatever it would be is on the ballot, and then you can also see who endorses them as well as their stances on many different things.
And don't go if you see a video with that, like say you like a politician and they say, oh, I'm going to do this for you, and they've been in office before. You can also go to the different whatever government they work in and see how they voted in all these bills.
Right. You
And
can see
so,
their past history.
yeah, so what you do is, say, I would have voted this way on this bill. And if they said, oh, I'm going to vote that way too, but then you actually look and they voted differently than what they said, that's why you got to do your background. Every
Right.
politician lies, both sides.
Yep.
Like, I love the Judge Judy quote. She always says, "How do I know a kid's lying? Because his mouth is moving." I say
Right.
the same thing about politicians. How do you know that? Because their mouth is moving. And that's
Right.
both sides. I don't like politicians. I think they're there just to take money from us and make money. They only care about themselves. That's why we need more regulations on how long you can be in office and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, last question for you, Eddie.
Yes.
Give me 3 names of people that I should have on the show.
3 names of people that you should have on your show. Man, and I should have known you were going to ask me that. Um, hmm. Man, that's really hard. Like, I don't think you could get this person, but it would be cool if you could have Robert Gabea on it.
Yeah.
He would be really cool. Maybe, Lauren. Lauren's a military man. He might have some great stories.
Okay.
And how about, so Mike Jones is a friend of mine, and he is also, like, he's just went through, he's in the East Coast, and he went through this tragic hurricane right now that just happened. And he's dealt with a lot of personal stuff, which I won't say unless he wants to talk about it. I think Mike Jones, if you could get him, would be awesome. I really do. I really do.
All right. Well,
That's 3, I think. Yeah, that's 3.
yeah, that's 3.
Yeah.
Well,
Lawrence, because, yeah, I could ask Kay Bean if she would come on your show.
yeah.
Maybe.
Well, thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you for being here for 3 weeks. And we will be back next week. Next week's guest is David Devine, and he is a
Badass.
pretty big deal. I mean, going off of what Eddie says.
I can't wait to see Dave. I've met David with you, in fact, and David.
Right.
I can't wait to see the stories that man is going to tell you guys is going to be awesome. So you guys have to watch it.
Yep, he was in a pretty well-known band that was inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame. So,
oh yeah,
we will leave it there, and I hope you all will join me next week. And thank you all for coming.
Bye, everybody.